Jag står här med Andy Munro, det är Musicians Planet och det är 2011. Hi Andy, very welcome to Musicians Planet.
Pleasure to be here. It's a great event.
So, people are probably not turning their heads when you pass them by. You're sort of an anonymous figure, but tell us a little bit, who are you and why you're here?
Okay, basically, deep down I'm a loudspeaker designer, but I've had a 30-year career in acoustics. Before that I worked for Shaw Microphones, and before that I was a sound engineer. My whole working life really has been working with electroacoustics, and I spend a lot of time working with Dynaudio for more than 20 years. In fact, we worked together on several projects, including the whole Dynaudio acoustics professional monitoring concept. When I first met Dynaudio and we set up Dynaudio Acoustics in 1990, that was specifically to design professional monitors. Because although Dynaudio were well known for their drive units and for hi-fi, they hadn't actually entered into the professional studio world. And the first system we did, in fact, with them was Air Studios in London, which is a very famous studio, George Martin's studio. And the very first customer we had was Dire Straits. And the very first album produced on our system was Brothers in Arms, which sold about 20 million copies, so that was a good start.
Probably did something right then.
Yeah, and ever since then, really, we've been working on different ideas. And then about 2 years ago, I met the guys from SE Electronics, and they told me a little bit about the setup that they had with their factory and so on. And we decided to build a monitor system together, a whole range of monitors. That's how.
And here it is. Yeah. And here it is.
And this is the egg, the first one.
What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, this is the medium-sized egg. There'll be three altogether, a smaller one and a larger one as well. But this is the design for most near-field studio control room applications for recording, mixing, and even mastering, maybe. And the whole idea of the egg is not a gimmick. I did some research, some old papers going back to a guy called Olson in America in the 50s, and he determined by experimentation and by calculation that the perfect shape for a loudspeaker cabinet was actually spherical, or certainly no corners at all. And this is the nearest we can get to that and still have room for the loudspeakers, basically, because you can't really put those into a perfect sphere. But the first thing we found when we built a prototype was that not only did we get rid of a lot of the diffraction effects, which are common with small speakers, we also got rid of all the resonances that are common with small speakers as well, because internally you have common parallel sides, which create a lot of miniature standing waves inside the box, which is actually a bad thing. And the other thing we found was that by making the egg shape like this, we could reduce the weight of the speaker and the material stiffness a lot. I'm sorry, not the stiffness, the thickness. So increasing the stiffness. And we found, although it's a common impression really that loudspeakers have to be heavy, and the heavier the better. And actually that's not true. The only reason they have to be heavy is to control the resonances that you get in thick pieces of wood. If you eliminate that, then what you get is you have a resonant frequency, and all materials do, but it's very high in frequency, so it's not excited by the bass driver. So the tweeter can't do it because the tweeter's closed. There's no energy inside the box from the tweeter. So we ended up with no resonances at all. We simply couldn't measure any. And yet the cabinet weighs far, far less than a normal wooden cabinet, but with no bad effects. And we found that also the shape also controls the low frequencies very well. So inside you have a constant pressure at all frequencies, because there's no boundary effects, no internal modes. So the sound that comes out of the bass port, in fact, is perfectly flat. There are no resonances at all. So by a process of elimination, really, getting rid of all that stuff, what you end up with is a very, very clean sound. Particularly in the low frequencies, you notice it. Very tight, very precise bass response, especially from a small box. And that really is how it all started. It sounds like a very simple thing, but it took 2 years, really, to develop all of that. And then we had to develop a control unit that was complementary to the system here. So this contains 4 power amplifiers, 2 for each channel. So it's completely bi-amplified, and that allows us to control the sound with a little bit of EQ So you have a mid-range switch which allows a hard response, a bit like an NS10, or a soft response, a bit more like a hi-fi, and obviously a neutral position in the middle. And then we have bass and high-end EQ as well, just for room correction, different types of room location. If you put any loudspeaker in the corner of the room, it gives a boost to the bass, so you have to be able to roll that off. But we've used very precise variable pots, not switches. So you can actually, if you have an acoustic analyzer, or you can put one on an iPhone these days, you can tune the thing very precisely to within half a dB or so. And all of that goes together to make what I think is a real advance in the art of near-field monitoring.
We're looking very much forward to trying them out.
I hope so. I hope so.
Thank you very much for taking your time.
Okay. Pleasure.
Great. Thanks.
Pleasure.